Okay, yeah. What's up, guys? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, nice. Yeah, and good to meet you. This is my name is Gavin Mehl. So yeah, Gavin Mehl on YouTube. You could find me, search me. It's all under my brand. Just Gavin Mehl, Mehl, is YouTube or X. And so it sounds like you're just completing the course. You're learning about. You guys are you're basically like at the point of like figuring out the entire what happened with Bitcoin. It sounds like, right? So that's kind of where you're at right now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
now, like, what can you do to capitalize on it? I guess is kind of like where you're at right now. And so one of the things I can tell you about like the capital, how to capitalize on this. This is really where things will get exciting. That even Ella is kind of getting up to speed on about where things are going with Bitcoin. And that is there's been some really major breakthroughs lately in the technology. And so one of the things that's happened is
Evening.
good evening.
Yeah, of course.
Hey buddy, is that
He's talking to a resident because he's a concierge.
I'm at work. Sorry.
okay.
Continue, forget about this.
So one of the things that's absolutely incredible that's happened lately is that we have a vendor.
YouTube.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, do you mind muting for a second while you're having a conversation?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. So one of the things that's happening is like we have an opportunity to. What Bitcoin solved was many of the things it solved that Ellis kind of talked to you about today was but the fact that we removed the centralization with Bitcoin is one of the major things. It became a peer-to-peer network, having a peer-to-peer transaction. And so by having things go peer-to-peer, it's important that we honor peer-to-peer throughout the entire flow of the process. And now what was happening innocently, it's been innocent. There's been many innocent things that have happened and many, intentional evil things that have happened. But this was more of an innocent thing where the entities would build these like centralized wallets. And the centralized wallets would require you to log in and sign up and have an account with the wallet provider. Let's say Coinbase or Binance or an exchange like that. And you have to have the Binance wallet to use us. And if you don't have it, well, yeah, you could still get your coins potentially, but it's complicated. And if you're a newbie, it's hard to figure out. So that centralized wallet has been a problem. So what's been recently created was a standard for the wallet protocol. It's called BRC 100 by a group called Project Babbage. They basically figured out this was a big problem having the centralized wallets. And so by allowing a standardized wallet protocol, what's it enabled is that these enterprises. Now here's where the opportunity comes into you. Enterprises, we're not going to get rich off of Dave Bitcoin. You're not anyways. You're going to get rich off of an enterprise adoption or a government or some institution finding a use case for this, where you make the connection to the development team. Let's say that you make a connection with Babbage and you go to the hackathon that we're having in January, and you have a connection with some enterprise business, even if it's a medium-sized business, but they're going to do a lot of volume and they have a need to put all their transactions on chain. Well, by making that connection, that's where you're going to get freaking rich, because it's wide open and nobody has done it yet. And they all need the technology. And right now what they think is that they can just build a blockchain on their own and make it private. Some of these large businesses like Amazon, they're in this fantasy still where they think, oh, well, we'll do our own intranet protocol. Kind of like in the 90s before the internet came out, there was what's called intranet. And they tried making the internet private because they want to make it private for them. But, it didn't work, and it never will work with blockchain, same thing. And so we're just a little bit early. We're early, but early is a good thing. It's better than being late. We're still early. We're so early to where they haven't figured it out yet. These like Amazons have not figured out that they're going to need a public blockchain, and then they just don't know exactly how to use the thing. And so what you could do is you actually can bridge the gap to where, look, this enterprise, this business, they need to have their transactions on chain. They need to have a use case. They have demand. Well, how do I do it? Well, you don't know, but you know the development teams that can do it. And then the real opportunity, I think, is going to be in consulting for that right there, where you say, look, I'm gonna bridge a consulting deal with this, multi-billion-dollar company or even $100 million company, and they need to use this stuff. They don't know how. Well, these engineers know how to do it for them, and then you structure a consulting deal or a consulting company, and you broker the deal for $1 million, $100,000, whatever your deal is. I mean, there's such a massive opportunity in that right now. Now the issue is that now you have to get the knowledge, because there's only literally maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 people in the world right now that even have that knowledge. And that can explain it, because you have you have a problem with the engineers and the developers. They cannot speak to a business person. Developers and business people, they kind of like clash, because it just is confusing to the business guy. He's like, so it takes a person in between that, a guy who understands sales and communication. He can speak to somebody, and then that guy can speak to like a person who knows the developers, or maybe the developers directly, and then he speaks to the business guy. That's where the real opportunity is, because right now the developers have all this knowledge and all this amazing opportunity and skills that have been built on Bitcoin, but we only have like 1 or 2 people in the world that can actually explain what they've built and done.
More than 1 or 2.
Yeah, more than 1 or 2, but it's small. That really can explain it to the regular individual business person. Yeah. That is such a gap that needs to be filled.
Probably 100 or something.
Yeah, it's small. It's small, maybe 100, but I mean,
minority of people.
What's that?
I don't know. I just said a small minority of people.
It's a small minority when you consider the entire world needs blockchain.
Yeah.
For every business needs blockchain, basically.
But here's the other small minority that even gets smaller, and that is, the need of blockchain and the understanding of Bitcoin is one thing, but now it's about, what about this standard wallet standard protocol? Now we're talking about only a handful of people that even know about it and understand it, because knowing about blockchain is one thing, but then they're stuck back in the centralization rat hole of getting into another wallet provider, and then all of a sudden they fail again. And once they fail, you lose that business opportunity. They think, well, it's not going to work because of the centralized wallet. So we had to figure out how to do the wallet, how to get the wallet standardization protocol with a vendor neutral wallet protocol. And so with that combination with Teranode, now the Teranode, it will never affect you. And so people ask me, like, what's Teranode? How's it going to work? I mean, well, the way I would describe it is that it's like oil coming out of the ground at the refinery when you just need gas in your car. You don't really give a shit about the black oil coming out of the ground. It's cool, and somebody's making a lot of money on that, but you don't really know how it works or care about it because you never use this stuff. But how do I get to gas in the car really quick and cheap? So that's where the wallet standard protocol comes in. That's the gasoline coming out of the pump from the wallet protocol. And what you use, what you sell, either as a consultant or you just use it with a wallet. But the Teranode is the oil coming out of the ground in massive amounts. And so, or it's like a freeway, all the freeway lanes are paved all across the United States in the 1930s, but nobody was driving on them yet. But they started building these highways, Highway 80, they're super lane highways in Los Angeles, coming up in San Francisco on I-5. And like, nobody's driving on these. Why do we need these highways, Well, we definitely needed those highways. We definitely needed them. I mean, now we got massive traffic. So it was a smart move to scale it. It's the same thing, but it's going to happen a lot faster. Pardon?
That's essentially what BSV is then.
Well, BSV is just Bitcoin, right? So that's kind of the confusion, right, with BSV. BSV is just Bitcoin. That's what it is. BSV is kind of a ticker. I guess if you're looking at investing in a coin, you could call it Bitcoin SV, but it's just a Bitcoin protocol. That's what it is. The Bitcoin protocol is BSV. That's the base layer of the internet. So that's kind of the confusing part. I try not to reference BSV because it gets confusing with people so much when they're looking at things, right? I'm talking about the base layer of the protocol itself, the data layer of the internet, the one that's built, that's scaling to millions of transactions a second, at infinity, the one that is blending with what's called IPv6. And so the IPv6 part of the internet is another layer that's coming out right now, where for the last 30 years, the guys who did the IPv6 forum, they were at the London Blockchain Conference. I mean, they said, well, we'll work with any blockchain that's legal, compliant, and it scales and can grow on IPv6, but there just isn't any that work or even close to working other than what's called the BSV blockchain or the Bitcoin blockchain. So And that's another layer, which is the intellectual property side. So there's like this great Bitcoin flippening that's going on right now, the movement that I'm kind of coining right now on my channel. So you can follow Gavin Mehl at YouTube or Gavin Mehl on X. If you go on X, you could join the live chat. Not even live chats, live calls. Like I have I'm doing live like forums with large groups on Sundays right now. Like this Sunday at 10:30 Pacific, so UK 8 hours ahead from that, 7 hours ahead from that. On Sunday, I'll have a live one. And it's the great Bitcoin flippening, like is what I'm doing right now is the topic. And it is actually a real thing. It's actually, it's kind of a meme and a joke it's more of a clickbait type of thing. But it's not as well, because there's about, I would say 5 elements right now that are causing the great Bitcoin flippening. And it's more than ever. 2 years ago, people started kind of thinking about this idea, 2014 with Daniel Kraywitz when he talked about hyper-Bitcoinization before the splits happened on the Bitcoin network. But then as the Bitcoin splits happened, Jack Lew started talking about what's called, like he was talking about hyper-Bitcoinization, but he didn't really coin it on the fact of the flippening yet between the chains in Bitcoin. So now that's where I'm at, where it's really happening.
Well, explain what flipping is when the liquidity moves from BTC to BSV.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, the liquidity on BTC is nearly 2 trillion and the liquidity on BSV is what?
600 million.
600 million. So there's a massive differential between the market capitalization of BTC and the market capitalization of BSV. And the flippening or hyper-Bitcoinization is when the market cap flips and the liquidity moves over. Yeah, so let me explain the fundamentals of that and how it's going to happen and how, how I'm front running it, put it that way, okay? So basically the idea is this. Bitcoin's an economic system. It's run through what's called proof of work, and the miners decide what they're going to mine based upon profitability of the transactions. That's their decision. If you go to a mining conference like Brett Banify went to the last one, the Minathon in Dallas a couple weeks ago, he's talking to hundreds of miners at the conference and asking them, do you guys care about, Michael Saylor and the laser-eyed maxis and the Hodl cult? What is your business model about? And they're like, what? What are you talking about? They don't even know what that is. They're like, we are just looking at the profitability between the networks and we mine what's most profitable. We have investors in our companies. We have to make money. They're not even aware of what this cult is about that they have on the Hodl cult. So, it's that's at the end of the day, right now, the networks are very close in profitability. And what's happening, it's inevitable. This part is inevitable. At some point, the what's called the rewards on the BTC blockchain will change and will go down. And once they go down too much, the profitability on the BSV network will increase because of the transaction fees. Because every transaction fee gives the miner payouts with BSV.
Incentive.
Okay, and the transactions are huge with the BSV, the original Bitcoin network called BSV blockchain, right? Especially as it's going to 1 million transactions a second in the future. Right now it's growing. And so at some point, there's going to be a massive breaking point on profitability just on the mining itself, just on that one element. And that causes the hyper-Bitcoinization of the great Bitcoin flippening overnight, when that happens. But that's just one element. The other elements are this. You have the legal side of it is my real expertise, and that is in the U.S. we passed a law called the Genius Act, in Congress. That's the Stablecoin Act that came out through Congress. That's now buying up all this U.S. debt with Tether and these stablecoins in the U.S. And they're making stablecoins legitimate. Now that's one part of the law. The other part's the Clarity Act, which is not passed through the Senate yet. It's in Congress, and it defines a mature blockchain. A mature blockchain has to meet 7 different elements. Those elements include, 1, you cannot front run the system and hold all the coins and then dump them on everybody. And being a 20% shareholder, that rules out Ripple XRP, Stellar, Ethereum, BTC Gregcoin. I mean, these you cannot change the protocol after release. Once you release the protocol as a mature blockchain, it's set in stone. You cannot change the whole network later to proof of stake. There goes Ethereum. That's exactly what Ethereum did. They completely changed the whole network and rugged everybody. So same thing the same thing with the Greg Coin BTC. The whole network was completely changed. They separated the digital signatures. They don't qualify as a mature blockchain. That doesn't mean they're illegal. They just will be under what's called the SEC security set of laws. They'll be stocks. They're regulated as a stock. So if you want to buy a stock, you'll be able to buy your favorite crypto as a stock in the future. But you won't be buying it as a commodity like right now. Okay, and you'll have one commodity, which is going to be Bitcoin SV. Gary Gensler talked about this in the last administration. He's like, there's only one commodity. He called it Bitcoin, which he's referring to this Bitcoin SV. Because that's the law, how it operates. There's only one. It's not, that's another angle that will bring it about. The other thing is the intellectual property side. The intellectual property side, you've got the reason that the COPA case happened, which I covered every day on my channel while the trial was going on. You can go back and watch the trial videos if you want. It's on the COPA playlist on my channel. And the COPA, which is the Crypto Open Patent Alliance, they came in and sued Dr. Wright for the naming rights. Originally, he was claiming copyright to the Bitcoin white paper. He had patented over 1,400 patents on blockchain in the industry, and most of them in his name. And with that, they wanted to attack the creator of those patents by discrediting him. That was their purpose. Now, this is a long-term strategy for them, but what would happen is that Square, Jack Dorsey, and these Lightning Network companies, they would do their research to come up with these new ideas, and then their attorneys would tell them, hey guys, you're stepping on patents here. You got a problem. What you're doing is all patented. This is a problem. And so they'd say, shoot, what should we do? Well, let's create an idea. We'll form an alliance with Silicon Valley. We'll get we'll get Mark Zuckerberg, we'll get Jack Dorsey, Twitter, we'll get Elon Musk, we'll get Michael Saylor, we'll get all these people together, and we'll sue the creator of Bitcoin and the creator of these patents, and we'll try to discredit him. If we can discredit him as a fraud, maybe in the future, and I had a show with one of their attorneys about this, David Pierce. He's a patent attorney. And I said, is that the strategy? He says, oh, no, that's not the strategy. I'm like, okay. I said, but maybe not the strategy initially on this one case, but is that the long-term strategy? It only makes sense because in the long term, it wouldn't be on that case, but in the long term, if you can discredit the inventor of the patent, maybe you could discredit the patent in the future. That's a theory. Attorneys will tell you, no, that's not possible, but what other options do they have? I think that's their long game that they're playing. So that's the other part is we have all these patents over the industry and the blockchain industry that are all under what's called the Teranode group now. That's the holder of all these patents. So Craig Wright doesn't actually control the patents. He cannot litigate on those patents. He's just the inventor. And he is a shareholder, but he's not the decision maker. So there was a sale for like $540 million over the intellectual property portfolio over all these patents in 2023. It really happened. You can look it up.
That's cheap.
$540 million. That's how much that a company bought the patent rights on the intellectual property. Unfortunately, it was a friendly sale, inside of like the Air Group, that bought most of that. So it didn't go to Google, thank God. Craig Wright was like adamant about never letting Google buy that stuff or somebody like that, but yeah, that did really happen. There was like a $540 million sale just for the intellectual property and what had been invented so far. So that's the other angle with the great Bitcoin flippening. And then in addition, you have this Hodl cult where just the regular people, the regular boomers that are hearing about Bitcoin and these exchanges, and they're losing their ass with Hodl. And they buy it at 100 and now it's at 80 or 90 and now it's back to 90. It's like, whoa, this is crazy. Hodling is not working out so well. The Hodl cult narrative is failing. I'm calling it the end of the Hodl cult. And we're going into actual use, actual utility. What can we do? What's in it for me? How can my business as an enterprise is our target market, not a mom and pop, a consumer. If they don't have any money, it's going to be hard for them to build a business on Bitcoin, right? So it takes money to do this. So that's why enterprise is really the target market. When Larry Ellison did Oracle, his whole thing was like, he wanted to go after enterprises and government to build a software to bridge them onto the internet in the early 90s. And that's how he became so rich. It wasn't because he just went after just a guy, who had no money. And so that's where the target market's going right now. And as the Hodl cult's ending and utilities coming about, and people are starting to realize that look, we needed a vendor neutral standard to build these wallets, to have the wallet protocol. And then with the wallet protocol, we had to have a way to to use this transaction and create actual value for our customers. And let me give you just one simple example from the last hackathon, because it's a real use case scenario that everybody's dealt with. If you ever got a job, you go, of course, everyone's here's had a job. You clock into your job every day. You log in your time. When you go to the job, you say, all right, I worked 9, I clocked out at 5 every day. And then at the end of the month, you get your paycheck, or the end of the week. And you may, in this particular guy, this particular employee, he was doing that every single day. And then at the end of the month, after a few months, he started kind of calculating. He's like, I'm not seeing all my hours, I don't think. But he didn't actually have proof of the records of his time log. He would log in, he would have to write it in his phone or write it down, and he would log out. But he didn't really have the proof of the actual time log. And so what was happening is he was getting shorted on many, many hours. So he was shorted hundreds, maybe $1,000 on his paycheck at the end of the month. And he's like, finally he goes to the company and he says, I think I'm short on my hours. And they fired him. And he says, man, he was like, this is really annoying. I got fired for reporting what I thought was a flaw in the system, and they're actually likely doing this. So he, as opposed to litigating over the matter and suing the company, he actually knew about this protocol and the vendor neutral wallet structure. He was a student up in Oregon. I think it was Oregon University Tech. And so he knew the guys, the development team up there. So he's like, you know what, I'll just build a protocol and I'll call it ClockChain. And so what he's done is he's built a very real system that's saying every time an employee goes onto his job, he just logs onto the blockchain and logs his time, and so does the employer, and they both do it with a quick transaction, and it's all logged on chain for the network. Now they have a receipt, so everybody's honest. The employer's happy because the employer's not going to get sued later for some bogus lawsuit as long as he's honest. The employee's happy because he knows he has a log for his hours, and then the hours all get paid out. It's kind of like a simple ADT, time chain transaction, real use case that everybody can use. That's called ClockChain. That's a real business. That is an example of a business opportunity that he came up with that will eventually blow up, at some point. So, I mean, those are the type of businesses that somebody could come up with if they have an idea for the hackathon, which is going to be in January. This one's going to be in Boulder, Colorado. There'll be like a reporting online with it on X, but really the goal is in person, because if we can have in person, I'm trying to get the venue resolved right now, but if I can get a nice venue with a hotel and get everyone there, then the last time I did a big one was at the Fairmont in San Francisco, where I had everybody come in and they all flew in. It's not huge. I'm talking, it was like 60 people at the one at Fairmont, but that's pretty big, because it's a really core group of people all working together, would put in their brains together, and then everyone would split up in teams. Like, hey guys, let's come together, and they have an idea. And what happens is you've got a developer or a development team, and they're usually between 19 and 25 or 30, and they've never had a business. Some of them have never had a job, but they're brainiacs when it comes to computers. And so they know how to do this stuff. But then you got a business guy, and he's there, and he's like, I don't know anything about computers, but I know about business. And so the goal is well, let's work together. And even at the end of the day, if you're just having fun, you're just having fun. But there's also always prize money. So last time it was like $30,000, in prize money. Before that, it was like $50,000 or $60,000. So not only do they have like incentive to win some money, they actually could start building a business. But as it's growing more and more, we want to bring small investors there, to hey, let's really take one of these ideas serious and get something off the ground with the hackathon, because people come together and they start using this standard protocol. That's where, we're going to see real mass adoption, not just through the great Bitcoin flippening. I mean, the great Bitcoin flippening, we just don't have control. That's exactly when that's going to happen unless we do this stuff. If we create demand through the business use case scenario, it happens fast, dude. Like as soon as these mass businesses start going on the last thing, okay, to fill you on the great Bitcoin flippening is the Teranode, which is not going to really ever affect you. But Craig Wright's come out recently and said that he's the one investing $30 million a month into scaling Bitcoin. That was with a Fox News, ex-Fox reporter called Kate Masso, that she came on my show, and she interviewed Craig, and she knew nothing about blockchain or Bitcoin, and she just went to Craig and asked him about all these things from Kurt Walker Jr., And he's like, yeah, I've been, right now I'm basically putting in 20 to 30 million dollars a month every month to make sure that we scale this Bitcoin protocol to the, infinity forever. It never stops. And that's an insane amount of money. Well, how's he even doing that? And you kind of like look back at what happened with the Satoshi era coins and the Kleiman case, and how, there are wallet addresses in Kleiman that were all that he has the control of, which is about 1.1 million in BTC. With that, we saw a transaction move for 50 BTC transactions, all moved on the same day, July 4th, 2025 of this year, Independence Day. And with that, one of those had a CSW in them. These are where it gets kind of like, entertaining topics. I don't have proof of this stuff, but it all leads back to where that was Craig's wallets. He'll never admit it, but that's where he's getting the money. That was an $8 billion sale that liquidated 2 months later on Mike Novogratz Galaxy Digital Exchange. So that's the only explanation for who has the money to be funding Teranode's, growth and expansion like that, because it takes like $2 million a month minimum with AWS servers, from what I've seen, a month. I mean, from what I've heard. So obviously there's a lot of money that has to go into it. I know Calvin Air was putting a lot of money into it before. That's the other part, but we don't have control over that part. So that's why I try not to focus on it too much, but that's the other big part. If that continues and Bitcoin does continue to scale to 1 million transactions a second, it's the only network that will really work. So that's my 5-second elevator pitch. Follow Gavin Mehl on X and YouTube, and you can learn more.
Thank you for that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
Yeah, any comments or questions?
Gavin,
Yeah.
Yeah, one question. When you were talking about intellectual properties, is that RWA something to do with RWAs, or is it two separate things?
I'm talking about patents, UK patents and US patents.
Right.
Yeah, most of the, there's probably about 400 actual granted patents by the governments right now. And then there's like another 1,000 that are in the applied status, where like patent pendings.
Right.
And there's probably about 400 granted. Most of the most important ideas have all been patented, including AI on blockchain. I met with the patent attorney while I was there in the London Blockchain Conference with Craig, the head patent attorney, and I asked her about the AI. And I said, they're talking about AI right now at this conference. And I said, is the AI intersection with Bitcoin all patented? And she says, Gavin, do you think they're going to talk about it publicly right here? If not, I'm like, no, of course not. Yeah, you're right. Of course it's patented. And she's like, yeah, come on. So like, that's just one, but the smart contracts that Ethereum's done, NFTs are all patented. Now, these are just, things that could happen. We have not seen the patent litigation ever happen. Will it ever happen? I don't know, but again, it is patented. These people are stepping all over patents. There was in the Dubai conference, Al was there and I was there, the Craig Wright speech in Dubai, the keynote speech that he made in Dubai, which is now off the internet. You can't find it. But he called out Vitalik Buterin at Ethereum, and he says, and Vitalik, you said that Ethereum is permissionless. Well, since it's permissionless, I went ahead and built Bitcoin on Ethereum. That's Scrypt. Scrypt is the smart contract protocol on Bitcoin, where you can do all the smart contracts because it's Turing complete now on Bitcoin. I went ahead and built Bitcoin on Ethereum on Bitcoin because it's permissionless. And guess what? I'm giving you notice that you're in violation of this certain patent that was just granted this month, and it was granted that month back when we were in Dubai on smart contracts. So get your act together, or we're going to sue you. Now, he just gave that but it was real. It really happened. I mean, that's a true story. He does have the smart contract patent, and Ethereum is running smart contracts, and they're in patent violation. So it's just another part of the puzzle that's causing the great Bitcoin flippening. It's not the only part. That's where people get it wrong, and they think, oh, that's so great. It's not so great unless you have all these other parts together. We have to have the adoption through the use case with the wallet standard protocol, with the BRC 100 protocol. That's a major function that's only just recently been solved. So with that and the scaling of Teranode, it is happening. It's really happening.
Gavin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, have you heard of this new coin that's just been released, Monad? MONAD.
Yeah, I just did a show. Actually, it just came out today. I haven't put it out on my network, but I saw they tagged me a minute on LinkedIn. I did the panel with those guys. A guy called Ron Tater is the one behind it. And it's what it is he's the same guy that did the wallet, Rock Wallet. And Ron Tater's a bona fide billionaire guy. He's an ex-gambling industry like Calvin is, and he's invested heavily in the space. Yeah, and so the stable coin is a real thing. It's truly the most legitimate stable coin. Also, it's gasless. It's the first gasless stable coin, so you don't need gas at all. Feeless and gasless, so you don't need to have another coin to buy it. Okay, you don't know what gas is. All right, so yeah, you could just transact in it peer-to-peer, and Elle will teach you. Somewhat you're gonna be able to start texting your friends cash. That's how it works. It works now. Hey, I want to send you some cash. $5. Here you go. Send. $2. Here you go. I mean, as opposed to Venmoing, or we have Venmo here in the States. I don't know what you guys use, but we'll use a Venmo to send each other cash, but it still has fees. But this is cash in stablecoin, all through text, and there's no middleman, and there's no wallet. You don't need a wallet. It's all you need is a text. So your brand new friend that's never heard of Bitcoin, doesn't matter. What's your number? Let me send you some cash. He gets it. Oh, thanks. That's happening. That's how people are starting to use it. Also to Telegram. It works in Telegram and text right now. So I think it's called textbsv.com if you want to look into it. Textbsv.com. He bought the brand name for that. So yeah, that's what money is. It's called MNEE. Yeah. Any other questions or comments?
Me, I'm done personally.
Yeah.
All right, brain dump. Thank you guys. My tagline: see you at the top.